Ever since I've started the channel, there is one video I've been wanting to do for you, and it's one that's been requested more than any other. I'm Lee, this is Combe Valley Campers, and today we're going to be showing you how to remove and refit the dashboard in a VW T3. Knowing how to take the dash out of a VW T3 or Type 25 or Vanagon is a really important thing to know, because once this whole dashboard is out, there are a multitude of jobs to do once it is out. We are going to be removing the dash today and showing you how to put it back in. But we are going to be filming some other videos at the same time, which you can find down in the link in the description. One of those is to how to replace the heater fan. We're also going to be replacing the windscreen washers, and we're also going to be having a cleanup of the electrical terminals and the earth terminals in particular. So strap in, we're going to show you how to take this dash out, and believe it or not, it's actually not that hard. To remove the dash of your van, you are going to need a selection of general hand tools such as sockets, spanners, screwdrivers, and more specifically a pick tool to prise off some of the more delicate plastic parts, and you're going to need some mole grips to remove the shear bolts beneath the steering column. Because we're going to be dealing with electrical items under the dash, it's always good practice to disconnect the battery first. In a petrol T3, T25 Vanagon, you will find the vehicle battery underneath the driver's seat. In a diesel, you'll find it in the engine bay. So let's go and disconnect that battery. Depending on how original your car is or how messed about your car is, you will find that the battery terminals may have anything from a 10mm nut and bolt anywhere up to a 13mm. So I've got a multitude of spanners with me today, however I believe that is the 10mm. Now it doesn't look very tight on there anyway, and look at the state of that earth lead there. That's an absolute mess. So that's going to go on the list as something we need to change. But actually don't need the spanners, look at it. There we go. I've disconnected the earth first. It's always good practice to disconnect the earth first. So that's done. That's going to be tucked out of the way. Let's see how tight that positive is. That's tight. It's going to need a 10mm spanner, and also you can see that we're missing a battery strap as well, or at least the battery hold down bracket. So that is something we are going to need to find and replace. There we go, let's start tearing that dash apart. Before we make a start then, we're just going to familiarise ourselves with what we've got here. Now this is probably the most basic dash. It's a base model van. We don't have any extra switches. In a more high-spec camper van, you'll find extra switches here for rear heating. You'll find more switches up here for different lights, and you'll find more gauges and different things on the dash as well. This is about as basic as it gets, so it's very easy for me to explain actually. So starting from the driving position, obviously you've got the steering wheel in front of you, the center cap or the horn push button, that will remove to disconnect the steering wheel if you need to. Behind the steering wheel you have this dash cowling or the steering column plastics, and these are removed very simply with a Phillips screw just up in here and a Phillips screw just the other side as well. Moving to what is known as the dash clocks and the dash binnacle, we have got this top section here, and this completely removes. There are 2 finger gaps in the back which helps you lift the top. However, that doesn't always work, so I'll show you the other way to do it as well. And then you've got the dash clock section here as well, and that's fairly easy to remove. You've got a series of heater vents around the dash. We've got one down here which is adjustable, one for the side windows, two for clearing the windscreen, and then you've got the same the other side. In the center, you've got a speaker gap. Now, I've only ever found one van with actually a speaker mounted here from factory. They are normally fitted in the doors or not at all. In front of that speaker gap, you've got the ashtray, very easily removed. You just pull it out. Below that ashtray, you have the stereo, or the gap for the stereo. This one doesn't have one in, so it's going to be very easy to explain. However, to remove your stereo, you might find it has some keys that slide down the side, and then you just pull the stereo out. Or an older version might be screwed in. This has actually got the original stereo wiring in as well, which is quite novel. Normally they've been chopped about and hacked off. To the right of the stereo space, you have the heater controls. Now, they're not that mythical, really. People sort of move them about to try and get heat, but as a quick reference, if you want it hot and to clean your windscreen, all of the levers go to the right. And then to the right of all those levers, you've got the switch which control the fan speed. And we're not going to do any modifications to that today. You can set them on a variable speed switch. However, we're just going to leave the switch as standard. To the left of the stereo plate then, you've got a cigarette lighter. We're not going to be removing that. There's no need to remove that. There is just a plastic plug behind them. To the left and below of the dash then is the glove box. Very, very easy to remove. We will be removing it today for you, but you can remove the dash without removing the glove box entirely. And coming back to the center, you have this piece of dash plastic here. They differ between years and between engine models. This is a 5-speed petrol. So this is what this cowling looks like, and again, very easy to remove. So what we will do now is start with the dash clocks and how to remove them, and then we'll go through everything else that you need to know. The first thing I'm going to tackle today is removing the dash clocks. Fairly simple, but it's good to start with this first because it's quite delicate. You can move it out of the way and leave it to one side. First step then is to remove this plastic dash binnacle. Now, there are 2 finger grips in the back, and if you pull them, it should come up. However, they more often than not don't. So what I tend to do is pull away at the bottom here and very gently lift it. And there's one place it will get caught here, and then you just lift it there, and the whole lot comes off. You see those clips at the back? They're designed to sort of catch on these and then pull off easily with those finger plates, but more often than not they don't. So we're going to move next to this dash binnacle. To remove the whole clock set, there's only 4 screws, but first of all you've got to remove all the switches. Starting with the little red light here which shows if your handbrake is on, and that also flashes if your brake fluid is low as well. And it has a catch on the top, a catch on the bottom. You release 1 and then 2, and then that pops out like that. So you clip 1 and clip 2. And most of the clips on the dash or most of the lights and switches within this dash binnacle have these 2 clips, but they might be orientated here and here, or top and bottom. So that's that one removed. To get it out of the way completely, you can remove it from the plug and just put it to one side. Next up is the headlight switch, but you can only really remove that once the dash binnacle is completely out of the way. So we're going to move on to the other side. So normally you will have 3 switches here. We've got the rear fog light, the hazard switch, and this top one would normally be the likes of a heated rear screen. This van in particular doesn't have one, it's just a blanking plug. So next switch down, we have got the hazard switch, and I'm going to use this plastic trim tool. You can use a flathead screwdriver. I'm going to just pop that clip in one side, press in the other, and that should fall straight out. Now, there are a number of connections on the back. It's nothing to be scared of. They all go in one place, really. I'm going to leave that to one side for the moment. And the last switch, which is the fog light, so I can get that removed. Come on. Going to use the screwdriver in there actually. There we go. And that one's out. That's another one that we shall remove once these 4 screws have been removed. So that's the next step. We've got 4 screws with washers. We're going to remove those and put them in our container. Always handy to have a container so you know which screws go where, and then you can even label those sections so you know which screws to put where. So we have 1, 2, 3 and 4 screws that hold those dash clocks in. Now we can move that forward slightly. I can completely remove this switch and put it to one side. And I can do the same with the headlight switch the other side. There we go. Now they are completely out of the way. Before we go any further, you might be wondering what this thing is in the middle, and that is your I can't even say it. That is your brake fluid reservoir. So if you ever need to top up with brake fluid, you do so in that top bottle. There's 2 more connections remaining. One is the speedo cable on the back of this left-hand speedo clock, and the one behind here is what's called a white multi-plug, and that is a rectangular white plug, and that connects all the electrics from the van into the back of this dash clock here. So a case of removing that plug, and removing the speedo cable. Now there's 2 types of speedo cable that you might encounter on your vehicle. For an early van, so that's pre-83 or pre-82, 1982, it's a screw-in speedo cable, much like the older bay window buses. For the newer vans, 83 onwards, don't quote me on that, but they're about the same ages, it is a bayonet type fixing on the back of your speedo. And there we go, that is the dash completely removed there. Put that to one side, and let me just show you this connector here. That is the white multi-plug I was talking about, and that there is the bayonet fitting speedo cable just here in my hand. And that's it, that is the dash clocks removed. So I spoke before about using some containers for your screws and fixings. So what I've got is an old, what's this for? That was an old fuse holder. Multitude of fuses in there. And then we've got this larger one here. I'm going to pop all my switches in there so they're safe, out of harm's way, and I know where to find them later. Now it's going to be really handy when there's more and more screws that are going to come out soon. The next item we're going to concentrate on is this heater plate. Now it's made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. They're the pieces you have to remove, so I'm going to get my box ready. Now these heater handles, they are simply just pull off. They're not, well, depending on how much your van's been messed with, they can be quite tight. However, you've got to try and grip onto the actual handle, not this end piece, as tight as possible, because you can actually pull the whole end off. We'll see how these go, but they literally just pull off the lever arm. So let's give it a go. Point to note, you've got to be careful by not pulling it too hard, otherwise you could catch these bits of plastic on the way out. So I'm going to be pressing down a little bit and pulling very gently, but with force. There we go. That's number one. Number 2. Number 3. And we saved the plastic as well. Before we remove that plastic, we've got to remove this heater switch, and that is simply a case of, and I'll use the thinner trim tool, just pulling that out. Very simple. And I'll put that in the little tray we've designated for heater parts. Now this panel here is very susceptible to breaking the little locating studs on the back. There is one up in this top right hand corner and one in this bottom left hand corner. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to slide in the trim tool and just gently prise those plugs out very, very, very gently. If you tug on the whole panel, you'll snap them off and then it's a pain to put it back on. But I'm putting the trim tool in there and just giving it a slight twist just to peel them out. You hear that go then? There's one and there's the other. So it's that plug and that plug there, and they can snap off very easily. What we've got in here is a little bulb, and basically when you turn your side lights and headlights on, that little bulb will light up this whole panel. They don't normally work, so don't be surprised if yours doesn't. However, removing that, oh, come on, it's just a case of peeling the bulb holder out of this point here and then out of the whole bracket. To remove the dash entirely, we do actually have to remove both the terminals from that bulb holder because they've got to fit through this tiny little hole there. Now, oops, whilst we're in this area, there are 3 large Phillips screws that you have to remove from the heater lever assembly. If I get my Phillips screwdriver, we have one here, and there is one just inside. Now you might find you need a short, stubby Phillips screwdriver to get this one in here, or if you've got a really long screwdriver, you'll be able to get it at a bit of an angle, but this screwdriver won't really fit in there. So we're going to remove this one here. This fan has never been pulled apart before. I'm actually quite lucky because I don't think this has been messed with very much. So there's one. I'm going to put it in a little pot with heater parts. There's number 2. And if you give us 1 second, I'll go and get the little stubby screwdriver. So right here is this last large Phillips screw, and it's one that has caught me out in the past. That's tough, because I've thought I've disconnected everything on the van or on the dash, and then all of a sudden it won't come out because you've got that one still connected. That's the last one there. Staying in the driver's seat, the next piece I'm going to remove is the plastics underneath the dash. And if I can get that in there without looking, there you go. You've got one Phillips screw in here, just dropped, and the other Phillips screw in this side. Oh. Right, 1 and 2. Gonna put them in my screw pot. It's literally a case of if you hold this down here, there you go, in one foul swoop, we're removing this clip, which clips around the steering column down there, and then that's where the 2 screws go in. I'm gonna pop that behind me and out of the way. This piece here, again, depending on how much your van's been messed around with in the past, may come out now. There we go. That's the other piece. Don't forget to thread that onto your wiper stalk when you come to put the van back together, because that's quite an important bit. So put that to one side. Our next point of interest are these 2, what's called shear bolts. Now, let me find you what a shear bolt looks like before it's actually sheared off. Now, what they would put on there for is basically a security measure. So somebody who wanted to, say, steal your vehicle wouldn't be able to remove these bolts in a hurry and break the steering lock or something like that. But let me go and get one of the end. It's actually a shear nut I've got, but I'll actually be able to show you what it looks like before it gets sheared off, and then we'll look into how to remove them. So that is a shear nut there. So what will happen is when that, well, in this case a bolt, when that bolt is tightened up, it will do up to a certain point, and then once that has reached a certain torque, the actual hexagonal nut section will shear off, leaving just the cone shape, which it has done there. Now, to remove them, there's a couple of ways you can do it. One of them is to hit something like an Allen key bit or a Torx driver bit into the center of this, and then you can use a socket to actually remove that. However, what I'm going to do here is put a set of mole grips or vice grips, whatever you want to call them, onto that bolt, grip it as tight as I can, and then we can crack the seal on it. If it helps, and I'm going to do it here, you can actually access the back of the bolt here, and you can probably squeeze just a little bit of WD in the back there just to make the removal of that a bit easier. So let me just go and get a bit of WD-40, squirt it behind the dash, and then we'll be able to give that a better try. There you go, so that's gripped on there now. It's actually turning the bolt, which is great. I'm just going to work it a little bit, see if I can manipulate some of that WD-40 down into the threads, and also it'll warm up the thread a little bit too. And now hopefully, if I've got this right, and there we go, you can actually see where the WD has penetrated all the way down the threads there as well, which is great. We're not going to be reusing those, we're going to be replacing them with an M8 bolt, but do keep the washer, so that will go in the pot. The last two bolts on the steering column are two M8 bolts, they are with 13mm heads. I'm going to undo them now, but we're not going to remove them completely, otherwise the steering column will just get in our way. Pop them in a couple of threads. And there we go. When we are completely ready to remove the dash, we'll actually remove those bolts and drop the steering column down. Whilst we're here on this side, the back of the heater motor switch, there's a little plug, much like there is on the back of the headlight switches, and we're just going to remove that. There we go. Concentrating back over this side of the dash, we have got the glove box and this plastic trim to remove. When it comes to the glove box, you should familiarise yourself with this anyway, because your fuse is sitting behind here. Now, what have we got in there? Oh, we've got a spare bulb. Excellent. The glove box does only go to this point, but it's a very easy way to let them drop down. Now, there are two different ways to drop your glove box down. One, there is almost like a string with a ball on the end, and that just stops it from pulling down. The other, there is a plastic hook which attaches to the back of the glove box. That does make a difference with early and late, but basically, if you can just see in here, there is the little string with a ball on the end, and I'm just going to pop that out, and then the glove box will fall down. Empty it first, otherwise your crap will go everywhere, but what have we got in there? Nothing really. And to remove the glove box entirely, you have got 4 screws there. So we're going to remove the glove box entirely, get it out of the way, because, well, it makes it easier for filming as well. Note that little earth I've just taken off. I believe that is for that cigar lighter, so we'll make sure to terminate that properly on the earth block which is over there, not just on a random screw. Pop the screw in the box, get that out of the way. Now the last piece of trim to remove is this piece of plastic. Now you might find on some vans that you can't actually remove that piece until the dash is out. On others, it should just slide forward. This is kind of half and half. I don't want to force it, so I'll wait until the dash is out completely. And then we'll remove this piece in particular. Now, I'll just have a quick recap. Oh, ashtray can come out as well. There's no stereo attached, so we're not going to concentrate on that. Now, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more screws. What you've got to determine is which screws they are. We have got these 2 large screws on the end here. Now they can be bolts with 8mm heads. Again, they differ between years and models. The other screws to remove are the 5 across the top of the dash. Only remove the small ones. Do not remove the large black screws. They are holding in your windscreen wiper motor. If you remove those, your windscreen wiper motor assembly will fall out, and then it's a real pain to get back in. So just remove the 5 smaller screws. And then the last 4. That is all the screws removed, and you can see there's a bit of movement on there. I'm going to lift this slightly and pull out that plastic trim in the middle. 1, 2, there you go. That literally slides in on 1, 2, 3, 4 points. It just slides on. And the last 2 bolts are this one here, number 1. Number 2, and the whole steering column drops down completely. Last part then is to remove the dash. Now I'm going to be coming this way towards you, but what you've got to remember is have a space ready. We've got a nice space ready and prepared over there, but it's quite cumbersome. You can remove it with one person. It is easier with two, however I'm going to be removing it on my own. Last things to check, make sure all of these connectors are out of the way. Pop them just back through the holes whence they came. And we're pretty much ready to lift the dash out. The heater spaces, what am I trying to say? The heater outlets, that's what I'm trying to say. They've got these cardboard hoses and plastic hoses attached to them. Literally just going to disconnect those. On the driver's side you can just reach through, and on the passenger side you can just sort of reach in from underneath. And they should just come out. Now, I'm going to be in the middle here. Oh, there is going to be a plug attached to that cigar lighter, or at least some wiring. So I've disconnected the earth there, and the live, sorry, I've disconnected the live, the earth was disconnected already. Then it's just a case of wiggling around. The only places where it catches is underneath this windscreen rubber. So, and again, this hasn't been removed before. There we go, she's coming. That's it. She's out. Whoop. So, one last point was those, do you remember those two little terminals I told you about before? For the bulb, for the heater controls. They're going through. Just have a quick check. And that's everything disconnected. So I'm going to head out your way with the whole dash. And there we have it, the dash is out. If you only ever want to do this job once, now is a perfect time to fix everything underneath the dash, and that includes the heater fan. That is maybe even resealing the foams in your heater console, maybe replace the heater matrix, do the windscreen washer hoses, and have a look at the electronics. There might be some electrical gremlins under there, or you might just want to tidy things up, and we'll go through that in all of the other videos. Right now, this will cut to putting this dashboard back in, but also a point to note, now is the time to give that a quick paint if you fancied it, tidy things up a little bit. So with a bit of movie magic, we'd have done all of those jobs, and now we'll put the dash back in again. Whilst the dash is out, it's a good opportunity to clean all of the bits and pieces, the switches, the lights, even do things like test bulbs. So that's what we're going to do now. What you may have seen already is the fact that we have cleaned all of the dash. I used some of the Valet Pro all-purpose cleaner with a drill, a brush mounted onto a drill. And that really cleaned up the dash and all the dash plastics, as you can see behind me. And what we'll do, once the dash goes back in, we can coat that with a sealant, and gives it not a really glossy shine, but just gives it a bit of a nice finish. But even cleaning up these switches now, you can see how grubby they are. And you've got to be careful what you use. Like, you can't really use a solvent-based fluid on these, because what I've actually seen before is the old it's the actual ink or the paint on top of these switches get removed, so you really don't want to do that. But yeah, you can just see how grubby these are. So yeah, just going to take a minute, get these all cleaned up before they go back in, because it's a bit more difficult to do it when they're out, when it's all installed. So let's go ahead and we'll get the battery in a second, and we'll test that all the little bulbs work too. One of the last things I'm going to check then in terms of the switches and switch gear is the little bulbs. Now, if you remember from the strip down, this little bulb here is the heater panel illumination bulb. And then we've got the hazard light switch and we've got the fog light switch, and they've both got a little bulb in that illuminate to let you know they are working. So if I just test this one here, so this, what I've got here is a test probe, electric circuit tester. You can test for positive, you can test for negative, and you can also apply a 12 volt voltage once you've got it connected up to a battery. So we've got the earth connected to one terminal, and if I put that there, you can see that that light is going green. I can press this button here, that'll apply the voltage, and we can see that that bulb works nicely, which is great. If that bulb wasn't working, I could tell before I even applied the voltage, because that wouldn't light up green. If that filament was blown, that wouldn't light up at all. So that one can go back in. We'll do the fog light next, if that's going to come out. So this is what's called the telltale light. There you go, gone green. Ooh. There we go. That's another good one, that's brilliant. And the last one is the dash bulb, the heater panel bulb, and that lights too. Just out of interest, let's turn the polarity round on that, and that works both ways. So when you come to connect them, you don't really have to know which the polarity is, because it will work either way on that one. So let's start putting the dash back together. What have we got to do first? In fact, let's just do one last check of all the wiring inside, because I know for a fact on the heater control switch we did pull a terminal off that. So let's go and get our terminals and our tools, and let's go and replace that little terminal, and then the dash is going back in. So if you remember, we accidentally pulled the terminal off that when we removed it, but it was pretty hashed anyway, it wasn't really holding on. So I've got to put a new female spade terminal on it. Now if I show you here that there is a difference between these two spade terminals, and the main difference is this little retaining clip here. So what that means that will do is when it gets inserted into the right point on this, it'll slide in and then won't be able to pull back out again. That little tab there will stop it from coming back out. So it's good to have, oops, it's good to have different variety of clips. Standard ones, so just use those. We used all of those for the earth terminals before on the other video. So this is going to be the one that goes in that there. So what I've got is a wire stripping tool, which is just here, and I'm literally just going to take 3 to 4 mil off that. That's a bit longer than I wanted to, but there you go. Just take the end off it. So you've got anywhere between 3 to 5 millimeter. I'm going to put this terminal into my crimp there, so it's not going to go anywhere, it's not going to fall out. I'm going to pop the cable into the end of that terminal, crimp that down. There you have it, one terminated lead with the retaining tab on. And if I now route this correctly under all of these, because our little heater switch goes here, I'm going to push this into that tab there, and you should hear an audible click when it gets all the way home. You ready? There you go. And that's not coming back out again. So that's now got a brand new terminal on there. And there we have it. So wiring's done, the cables for the heater's done. We've all covered everything in another video, which I'll leave down below, leave the link down below. Whilst the dash is out, we've replaced the heater motor in here, we've done some work on the wiring, and we've replaced the washer hoses too. So last but not least, let's pop the dash in, and we're going to start by lowering the steering column again, keeping our bolts safe to one side. Now I'm literally going to grab the dash and walk in with it, and that'll be the next shot. Okay, we're ready. So in one swift movement, we're going to get this back lip down into the dash and underneath the rubber. Remember the struggle pulling it out? That was where it was caught on the rubber. So we're going to literally pick this up. We'll locate that edge over there. Make sure it's missing the steering wheel. And once it kind of feels home, give it a bit of a wiggle, and those screws or screw holes at the back there are already lining up. Now, where do we go from here? I'm going to pick out my first screw, which is one of the black dashboard screws. I'm going to pop it in the nearest possible hole. There you go. Pop it in by a couple of threads, and now I don't need to hold onto that dash anymore. The reason I've only put one in is because I still need to sort of move and manipulate the dash. So step one, got the dash in. Step two, I need to locate everything in its right position before we start bolting things down. First thing we're going to do, because it's a bit of a pain, is this heater control panel and the associated wiring. So I'm going to lift the dash up slightly. Make sure all those cables are free from obstruction. And that is now located, and I'm just looking now at the heater cables. That they're not kinked or they're not catching on anything, they're following the right route. This cable here, this is for the heater switch, if you remember pulling this out. I'm now going to pop this onto the back of the switch panel here. So that is done, dusted and out the way. Before we start screwing anything in, I'm now going to locate all of this wiring, the dash wiring, sorry, the steering column wiring, and the lights and switch wiring that comes out of the dash here, because you don't want to start bolting things up and then realise you've got a cable caught somewhere. So we're going to pick up these cables. Basically feed each one up one by one. So that is the headlight switch. And that is in its location. The next is the brake warning light, or the handbrake warning light. Again, when you're pulling them through, make sure they're not getting caught on anything. And when it's out of its hole, there's some excess on it as well. The last wiring loom we've got here is actually for the stereo. And this is going to locate up and we shall just poke it out of there. Now your van might have some speaker wiring or extra wiring for the stereo. And just make sure it's all sort of flopping out of that aperture there, so it's out the way. This next one we have here is the two little terminals that go on the back of the lamp for the heater control panel, They're now through. And on this left side, we are there. On the driver side or right hand side, we have got the multi-plug that can just live in this area here. And then we have the loom containing the hazard light plug and the fog light plug. And they will feed up through. And into their place as well. Excellent, so we now have headlight switch, brake light switch, sorry, handbrake warning light plug, lamp for the heater control panel, stereo wiring, hazard wiring, fog light wiring, multi-plug. The speedo cable that we spoke about before, that is in the good place, it's not caught up anywhere underneath the dash. And the last thing really to locate on this side is the steering column. Now it's a bit of a movement that you have to move it around because there are two brackets under this dash and they need to be moved to their home up here. And there will be a telltale sign in the back of the dash where these once lived. There we go. And once they are in the right location, you can hold the steering column up and bolt it to up here. Now, can you see that feels a bit loose and floppy? That is because the steering column, it's a collapsible steering column. It's designed to compress. If you were to have an accident, it's designed to compress and sort of fall apart. And one of those joins is just here. Now there's a couple of rubber boots and there's a couple of locating dowels down here. What you want to do is just make sure you locate those pins into the top half of the steering column. Come on, you. There you go. That steering column is now together. And then we're going to move this bracket up to this part of the dash here. I've got my two M8 bolts ready. These are actually the bolts out of this point down here, but for this purpose right now I'm going to put these bolts up in these two brackets. One, just in by a couple of threads, and there's two by a couple of threads. Notice everything is still loose, nothing is bolted down, however we're not sort of precariously holding anything anymore. Next stage is going to be screwing it all back together. Before we screw everything down, let's take this last opportunity to put the hoses back in. Now you'll notice there's an ovaled end and a round end. If I can get myself down here, we have the round end is on the heater box itself, and the ovaled end goes to this vent here. So just a quick connection in there, and there's the cardboard tube as well under here that goes to this vent. So just going to connect both up. Can't see anything. Oh, he's having trouble. No, there we go. One. And two. Good. They're in. We'll do the same over this driver's side. It's a bit easier here because you can see them and reach your hands in. So there's one, and there's the other. There we go. Cool. Hose is done. Wiring done. This panel locates these 4 tabs onto these ridges here, and that slides right in. Satisfying clunk as that goes in, making sure all my wiring's clear. And there we go. Let's screw it back in now. Trusty packet of screws and bolts. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across the top. Again, nothing's being tightened down fully until everything is in its place. And that's good practice generally when you're putting cars back together. Locate all the holes, locate all the fastenings. Before you actually screw things all the way home. You may be wondering why I haven't treated any of the rust whilst I've been doing this or the other job. And that's basically because we're going to be coming back to it at a later date. I just need to get the van roadworthy at the moment. So any and all of the rust issues will be fixed. However, not today. Guys, that'll be a really long video. So excuse me while I bang this. There we go. Two for the other side. We've got them all in. I'm going to go ahead and do them all up. Glove box. And the ashtray. That's grim. There's one more earth there. Before we think about putting the top of the dash back on, it's very important that you first put your heater control panels in. If you remember when we tore it down, there's 1, 2, 3 large Phillip headed screws, and they go in from where they came, basically. No other way to say it. You're going to need that stubby screwdriver back. If it doesn't want to be a stubborn little bugger, come on. Come on, you. Oh, there you go. So, you have one more here. And one more in the top there. Next we're going to pop this panel in, make sure to locate the lights. And don't forget we've got 1 and 2 tabs, and once they're located, they just push in. Nice click all the way home. Now with these levers, they're the next thing to go on. At first glance they all look the same. However, if you take a quick look at them, these are opposing levers, because if that one was turned over, you'd see that gap in the bottom. So if you see those, there's two that are kind of twins like that, and this one that sits on the bottom. So what these do, there are two levers in the top and one in the bottom. So what we've got to do, I'm going to find me a pick tool, a very thin tool. In fact, I could do it from here. Let's do this. So what you've got, your levers inside. If you can get a shot in there, Ral, you can see me sort of moving that in there. So that's the top one, and the bottom one, if I use a screwdriver to lever it up, the bottom one is just there. You see that? So I'm going to put the top one in first. Where are you? There. So top one in. Put it not all the way home, but just until you can feel a bit of resistance. There. That's that one located. I'm going to move that to one side. I'll move it over there to one side. And then the other one is there. Pop that on there. Again, push it home. And you can go too far. There you go, that's located. And if you see those two now, they're both level and they both work with each other. The bottom one, where are you? There it is, there's the bottom one. I'm going to pop that one just on there. Gosh, they're tough. Oops. That's what can happen if you push them too hard. This thing can break. So, yeah, see, now that one's toast. That's basically broken now, because it was very stiff to get on. Luckily, I have replacements in stock, but that's what can happen if you push them too hard. They're quite fragile. So, make sure they're all working correctly, and that you can get your ventilation to the right place. Last but not least, put the little dial into your switch, and we'll call that bit done. Now on to putting the dash in. We're nearly there. We're nearly there. This is one of the main bits to go back in, and as you've seen, I've given all this a nice clean too. So again, in a bit of an order, we're just going to locate that dash there for the time being, because there's an order that goes on that makes sure we can get all the light switches in and everything else and get everything screwed in at the same time. So first things first, I'm going to locate the speedo cable at the back. Now if you have a look in the center of the speedo cable, there is a square worm drive gear. I guess we're going to call it a gear or a cam at the end there, and that slots in to the back of the speedo cable, speedo itself. Like I said, it's a bayonet fitting. So once you've sort of twisted it, located it, it should go in with a satisfying and audible click. And that's it. That click just went in there. The next plug to connect is going to be the multi-pin connector, which is that large rectangular white one. You're going to reach your hand in, locate it, and it'll only go in one way. And make sure that is all the way home. So that's that one done. And the next thing we're going to do is start plugging switches back into their relevant sockets. I'm going to start on the driver's side, and I'm going to start with the fog light switch, which is this one here. And if we can see this one here, can you see this one now? There's 3 tabs on the back, and there's 3 tabs in here, and that locates like so. And those 2 white prongs, they sort of fit over the side of the switch. And then it has a little earth associated with it on its own little loom, and that brown earth with the small female terminal just pops onto the back of the bulb. That's the first one down. Next one is a hazard light switch. Again, we've given that a clean. And once again, it only goes on one way. Come here. But there is 3 connectors to go on the back. There is a large white one, a small brown earth lead, and a black with a blue stripe. And it's pretty evident where these go, because the big white plug will clip on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 large connectors here. The blue will go on this pin, and the small earth will just go on the back of the bulb holder. So pop that in there, make sure they're all the way home. I'm going to put the black in with the blue stripe, and then the ground terminal on the back of the bulb. And that one's done. Now, I said there was an order. Oh, let's do the other side, which is the headlight bulb. And you'll notice I haven't screwed anything down yet. I said headlight bulb, didn't I? The headlight switch. Again, this can only be located one way. It's a rather large plug, and it'll only go on one way on there. So I'm going to plug that in first onto the back. And the only time you can plug that back into the dash is when it's loose. So this is the first one to plug in. And again, it'll only go in one way. Come on. There we go. And that's clicked in nicely. The tabs both sides have located. I'm not going to put the warning light on yet because I need access to the screw. So we'll move on to the other side. We're going to put the fog light switch in. And that has clicked in nicely. That's not going anywhere. And now it's time to screw this panel in. You can't get the fog light switch and the headlight switch in when it's screwed down, nor can you take them out when it's screwed down. So, locating one side and the other, I'm going to pick up our screws. One. Two. Three. And the last one with the washer. 4. I'm going to screw that down tight. Then I can locate the other switches. So the next switch is the hazard light. That's gone in with a click. We have our spacer that goes into the top, or your blanking plate. There you go. And then the last one is the warning light for the brake, or handbrake. Pop the terminal in. That's gone in with a click. Now, that is in. That's all the way home. Very, very happy with that. Just trying to think if there is a plastic membrane to go onto the dash. There isn't in this case. What you will normally find is a nice plastic membrane that goes over here, and that just keeps the dust off all the ribbons in the back and the terminals and the lamps. This one doesn't seem to have one. So I can finish this off at the top with its cowling, and it's going to be feeding that bottom strip in first. All its locating tabs, and then click, that's in. Last but not least then is fitting the steering column and the bottom cowling. the steering column cowling. Whilst I was down here, I took the opportunity just to replace the terminal on the horn wire, and to replace the shear bolts, I have found 2 appropriately sized M8 bolts here. What I'm going to do then is remove one of the lower bracket bolts from the top that I put in temporarily earlier. I'm going to replace it with my new M8 bolt. Just going to play. Come on, there we go. Super. There's one. Pop that other bolt down in the lower bracket where it came from. Wind that in nicely. And I'm going to do the same with this one just down here. Replace that one. And fit this new one. Before I tighten anything up, I'm going to replace this cowling at the top. Again, this has all been nice and cleaned. It's not going to go on now, is it? There we go. Now what's important to note here is before you do any of these 13mm or M8 bolts up tight, is that you've got this steering column in the right location. If I grab the key, you'll know if this isn't in the right location because you'll hear the steering wheel scrape on this cowling. So by the sounds of it, that's not scraping there. And I can do to make sure it's kind of in its natural position, and then I can do all of those M8 bolts up. Cool. Last bit. Tidying. And the last 2 screws and a pop. Well, after those 2, there's nothing in there. We haven't forgotten any. It's always a good sign. Let's pop them down there. Find our Phillips screwdriver. And locate this. Now obviously, as before, got that bracket. That fits just over the steering column. And then these 2 parts marry together. And you see all those tabs have just lined up really nicely up there, and it's clipped into place also. So the last thing to do is to pop your screw on the end of your driver. Close that up nice and tight. Not too tight, but enough to make sure that doesn't move. Locate the other side. Make sure it's all level, nice and neat. And screw those 2 bits together. And that's it. We have now removed and replaced the dashboard. The reason we did this is because we have done some work behind here. We've replaced the heater fan motor, we've replaced the earth terminals and the windscreen washer hoses as well. So this is actually going to be a two-part video. At the end of this video, we will link you, sorry, we won't link you because the video won't be released straight away, but we will, once it's released, leave a link to the video where we do all of that work. But yeah, look forward to that because we find out some things under here and we make some repairs and generally make this place a better place to be, make the dashboard a better place to be. Before you drive away down the road, just make sure that all of your systems are working. We've now fixed the fan, as you can hear, and then you've got to check your indicators, check your lights, and that your fuel gauges and temperature gauges work, things like that as well. So just make sure, do all your systems checks before you drive away. So thanks again for joining us. As we said before, this is the first part of a two-part video. We've got the dash removal and replacement, and then we're going into behind the dash and replacing all the bits under there. If you like the video, please hit the button in the corner, and also if you would like to catch our videos in the future, consider subscribing and you'll find the button down there too. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.